Hello everybody, this is Umair. I'm really excited to create tutorials on Angular 4. I have already created application based or a project based tutorials on Angular JS 1. Make sure to check that out if you don't know Angular 1. But if you still don't know Angular 1, I'll be taking you through all the core concepts of Angular 4 in this tutorial. So what is Angular 4 actually is? If we talk about Angular 2, or if you have worked in Angular 2, you should know that Angular 2 was totally a different kind of framework than Angular 1. Angular 1 was based on MVC model controller and view, that we need to do a two-way binding with the model values and the view, and then that Angular 2 was launched. Angular 2 was totally based on components. We need to create a component in every task that we want to do. There wasn't any scope in Angular 2. So Angular 4 is the same concept as Angular 2. It is not a much of a different than Angular 2. It's a slightly better in performance than Angular 2, but it will be same structure and same things, like we create components, we create directives, we create services in Angular 4 just like Angular 2. So in this tutorial, I will be taking you through all the core concepts. Before starting working with Angular 4, I just want to let you know that make sure to subscribe my channel for stay tuned and get notified for the upcoming new videos on project based and the core concepts of Angular 4. So right now you can see on my screen I have opened a link, and that is cli.angular.io, and this is the link that you need to open at start. I'm going to show you how to install Angular 4 in your system. What Angular have given to us is the Angular CLI, and it contains a bunch of commands in order to work with Angular 4 project. So you need to navigate to this link, and first of all what you need to do is you need to have npm installed in your system. npm stands for Node Package Manager. If you install Node.js, then npm will automatically be installed in your system. But make sure for running Angular 4 in your system, you must have a latest version of Node.js, which is right now 6.10, and you need to have at least 6.9 version of Node.js in your system. And when you will install it, it will install npm with it. Okay, so just download it and install it, or upgrade the previous version that has been installed in your system. npm version needs to be 3.10 or greater in your system. Okay, so you need to download and install. So I have opened up my WebStorm, and I have opened up an empty folder. It's not a project, any kind of Angular project, but it is an empty folder that I have just opened. Okay, so if you don't want to use the WebStorm, or want to use another IDE, then you can use CMD for working with the terminal. In WebStorm, I have a built-in terminal, as you can see at the bottom of my screen. So first of all, I want to check if the Node.js installed in my system or not. So I will write node-v, and it's going to show me the version of Node.js installed in my system. And you can see that 6.10.1 is the version installed in my system, and I want to check the npm version. So I will write npm-v. So it's going to take some time, and it's going to show me the version of npm that was installed along with the Node.js. So you can see it has shown me 3.10.9, and this is the latest version of npm. Both of the things are installed in my system. Now if we go to the Angular cli.angular.io, it's gonna show me a few commands that we need to run in order to install Angular CLI, and that will help us to create and manage our Angular 4 projects. So first of all, I'm gonna write npm install -g at angular/cli. So I will write npm install -g at angular-cli. Let me check that if it's fine. -g add. Okay, so I'll press enter. It's gonna take a few time, depends upon your system speed, so you need to wait and patient for it to be installed in your system. So now you can see that our Angular CLI has been installed, and this is how you are looking at. So it took me around 5 minutes, and it has installed Angular CLI in my system. One thing I want to mention here is that I have created an empty folder in a specific directory. Make sure if you are using CMD or a terminal in your system, you navigate to specific directory and then install Angular CLI. But if I navigate to the site CLI Angular, you can see that I used -G. It means that Angular CLI has been installed globally in my system. It means that I don't need to install Angular CLI in every project that I will be creating. It is installed globally in my system, and every new project that I'll be creating, Angular CLI will be available in my project. Okay, if you don't use -G, Angular CLI will be installed in a specific folder that you have opened in your terminal, CMD, or a WebStorm terminal. Alright, now in order to check if the Angular CLI is installed in my system successfully, I will go to my terminal and I will write ng-v, and it's gonna take some time and show me if the Angular CLI is installed or not. So you can see that it has shown me Angular CLI version, Node version, and OS version in my system. So it means that Angular CLI is installed. Now we are good to go to working with Angular 4 in our specific directory that I have just opened. We have installed Angular CLI. Now we need to create our project. So in order to create our project, we need to use the same command ng new, and after that we need to name our project. Okay, so I will write ng new, and after that I will name my project. So come in my terminal and I will write ng new and I will write first and I will press enter. So it's gonna create all the required packages for running my Angular 4 application. Our project has been created in my first directory, and if I go to my first directory, you can see that there is a project name called first, and along with we have a node modules. If you have worked with Node.js, then you should know what is node module, but if not, the node module contains all the packages required for automating the task, for managing the front end and the back end, different libraries and packages. So I'll be talking further about it later, but for now we can see that all the packages have been installed. And if I open up my first project, and it has installed the Karma that is used for writing the unit tests, and the package.json for managing all the libraries, and it has a source directory, and inside the source directory we are going to write all the AngularJS code for our application. Now our project has been created. Now we need to navigate to our project, which is, in our case, we have named our project first. So I will navigate to my first project, and after that I will write ng-serve to start my application. So I will write in my terminal, first I will write cd first, and I have navigated to my first project, which is like this. This is my directory, and inside this directory I have this first, and I have navigated inside this first project, and after that I need to write ng-serve. And it's gonna take few seconds, and it's gonna run my application in my localhost /4200. So compiled successfully, and if I navigate to my browser and I'm going to write localhost /4200, and it has shown me a message app works. So our application has been started. And if I go to my cli.angular.io, it has said me get started, and if I click on this button, it will open up this GitHub link, and in this link it has shown me all those steps that I have already done up till now, and it has shown me that I need to run this URL in order to open up my application, and this is the 4200. I have opened up the same, and it has also given me few recommendation. If I want to change the port, I can use the Angular CLI to change the port, and I need to write this command in my terminal in order to change the port, and the new port will be this one, 4201, and by default the 4200 is the port for you to run your application. So what is the benefit of Angular 4 and all the files that it has created? If I navigate to my project, and if I want to show any message inside it, let's go to our source, and in our source I'm going to open up index.html. okay, and inside it let's write something like any text, and if I save my project, it's automatically gonna detect that any change is going to expected in any file inside this project. It's gonna reload my browser. Okay, so I'm going to save this file and I'm going to navigate to my browser, and it has automatically reloaded the browser because it detected any change in my file, in my any file. Right now I have just index.html. So that was all for the installation of Angular 4. And if I open up other files, you can see that there are the .ts file. This is the TypeScript file. Angular 2, Angular 4 are all based on the TypeScript language. So we'll be using TypeScript for working and developing our Angular 4 core concepts and different kinds of application. Now I will talk about the project structure that Angular CLI have created for us, and I have named my project first that was generated earlier, and it has three folders: E2E, node modules, and the source folder. And after these three folders we have different configuration files. At the end we have tslint.json file. This file is used for building our application. We can change the configuration that how our application should be built. And up above that we have tsconfig.json. TS stands for TypeScript. If you have worked in Angular 2, you should know that Angular application from Angular 2 use TypeScript for developing our application. So it contains the configuration for our TypeScript. And we have a protractor.conf.js. It has a further testing configuration in it, and above that we have package.json. Package.json contains all the dependency modules that are required for our application. It's up to us that which module we want to use for our application. Like if we want to use _JS library, if we want to use grunt, if we want to use bower library, then we can add the version and the name of that dependency library, and then we can write and execute a command npm install. It's gonna execute all the dependencies that it will find and install that dependency after downloading inside this node_modules folder. You can see that right now under this node_modules folder we have bunch of different folders, and these are the libraries, dependency packages that are by default added by Angular CLI in our project. And we can manage all these node modules dependencies inside package.json file. Alright, and above that we have karma.conf.js, and inside it it has configuration for writing unit test. Karma is the test runner, and it uses Jasmine as a framework, and both of these tester and a framework is developed by Angular team for writing unit tests. And above that we have .gitignore, and we define all the folders or files which we want to exclude from our repository in our Git. And we have editor.config. If we want to config our editor, how much space should be added, the size of our character, and bunch of other things. And then we have .angular-cli.json. It actually contains all the configuration of our Angular 4 project, Angular CLI project. You can see that it has a project name. By default, the name that we define at start has been added in our name property. And after that, we have apps property configuration. We need to define the source folder. Right now, this is a source folder which contains all the code, HTML code, CSS code, our TypeScript code. If you want to create components, pipes, services, directives, all should be inside the root directory. And we have defined in Angular CLI.json folder, that JSON file, that this should be the root directory that needs to be created. And after that we have assets folder default, and this is the starting point of our application, starting point of our TypeScript to be executed at start. And bunch of other files. We have a styles.css. All the CSS styles should be written in our style.css file. And we have bunch of other configurations that I'll be talking about further as I'll be going you through in this tutorial. If I open up my source folder in my first project, it has three further folders. We have app folder, assets folder, and environment folders. And after these three folders, we have bunch of other individual files for the configuration of our source directory. So first one is a favicon.ico for the icon for our website or an application. And we have index.html that we have just opened. This is the head tag. It has a meta tag and the link tag for our favicon, and after that we have the body, and I just showed you that how we change the element or the structure inside the body, and that shows up in our browser. You can see that it's showing up in my browser right now. I'll just show you that where this thing is coming from. So let's come back, and after that we have main.ts file, and that was added by the angular CLI.json that I just showed you. This one, that this is where our TypeScript start executing when our application start. So at start of our main.ts file, these are the libraries that are imported by our Angular 4 project, and we have our Angular core library. We have a platform browser dynamic library that is used to make our application run on multiple browsers, and after that we have app.modules library. That is the parent module of our whole application, and after that we can set if we are in a production mode or we are in a development mode, and I'll come back to it later. And after that I am setting out it actually not I am setting out, but it actually default settings by our Angular CLI, and I'm calling the bootstrap module function. I'm setting out the root module, which is app.module right now, and I'm sending out this module to my bootstrapping my application. And after that we have a polyfills. This is used for the backward compatibility for our browser. And after that obviously we have a style.css. All the stylings that we want to write should be within the styles.css, and the test.ts file is used to write the unit testing. It has a karma already added and some of the configurations, but I'll come back to it later once I'll start writing unit test for our application. And tsconfig.app.json is an important file, and inside this file we define our configuration, that how our application should be compiled when we run it, that how it should be compiled and showed on our browser. Now if I open up my app folder within the source folder, we have a component and app.module.ts file. So let's first open up our app.module.ts file and let's see what inside it. First of all, these are the references of different libraries that needs to be imported before it being used. So first one is the browser module that is used to make our application browser compatible, that our application will run on browser, and this is the reference for our this library. And after that we have the Angular core ng module. This is actually the container of all other modules. Once we want to import all these modules, we define the add module declarator, and inside it we import all other modules. And after that by default Angular CLI imported and added the reference for our forms and HTTP libraries for handling the forms and HTTP requests in our application. And app.component is being imported for declaring our main component for our application. And these 5 lines are just the references of all these libraries: platform, browser, core, forms, HTTP, app.component. We are not using these component actually right here. We want to import all these libraries that we have referred right here. We need to refer all the libraries like this and store the reference within the variable. You can call it a variable. And after that within add ng module we want to set the declarator. This one is the declarator, and then we need to import these libraries. Make sure you remember this way of referring all the libraries, and after that we define a declarator, and import all those libraries that we have referred above. All right, and after that we have defined the bootstrap and all these things within the ng module declarator, and we have given it a value app component that is used by the bootstrap whenever our application runs. And after that we have exported our app module, and this is where we will start writing our app component code, and this is the parent module of the whole Angular 4 application. This is not the part of any component, but this is the parent module. And above that, all the 4 files, app components.ts, app components.spec.ts, app component.html, and the CSS files are one component. If I open up app.component.ts file, you can see that it has imported Angular core and stored the reference of this library in component. And after that we have a declarator component that is used to refer all other files that will be the part of this component. Like if I want to create a component must have an HTML file, its style file, and its TypeScript file, and all these three forms of languages or scripting files form one component. All right, so the component file must refer to HTML file and CSS file in order to become a whole one component. All right, and after that we have exported our app component class, and we have set our title that app works, and this is where our app works coming from in our browser. And if I want to change it, let's say I want to say app starts, and I want to save it, and it's gonna reload inside it, and you can see that it has changed app works to app starts, because this is the one and only component that was by default created by Angular CLI, and we have set our title app starts, and above that we have app.component.spec.cs, and this is the file in which we write the unit test for our TypeScript file, which is app.component.ts file, and .spec is the recommended name of our unit testing file. By default it has a few unit tests already written, but we will write our own unit test as we will proceed in this tutorial series. And above that we have HTML file, and inside the HTML file we are binding our title element in our h1 element. All right, if we want to create other variables and we want to bind that, we can bind the same variables within this kind of things, and we can use the directives that we'll talk about later. And above that we have app.component.css files. Right now by default Angular CLI haven't written any CSS file inside it, but we will write CSS file if we obviously we want to create our own custom component that we will be creating after discussing this structure. So that's it for the app folder, and after that we have assets folder. All the images, all the audio files, all the text files needs to be added in our assets folder. If we want to change this folder, we need to go to angular.cli, and we want to add a new folder inside it. By default assets folder is the folder that we want to use for our assets directory. And after that we have environments folder. Right now I don't want to discuss about it because you won't be understanding right now. Once I will proceed further and I'll talk about the services, directives, and components, I'll come back to it and explain you what this folder is all about. So let's get started working with creating our custom components in Angular 4. So now I'll show you how to create our own custom component, but before that I just want to add few more points in my previous explanation about these default component and the app.module.ts file. I have explained you that these 4 files except the last one combine to form a one component that is by default created by Angular CLI. So I have opened my app.module.ts file, and at the start we know that we have imported and added the reference of the external libraries that we want to use in our application. But this one is the reference to our component that has been generated by default. If you want to create our own custom component, that must be added right here along with this parent component. All right, and after that we have added the app component as a declarator, because at the first value of this declaration means that this is the parent component and all other components will be the child components of this parent component. And this one, bootstrap our Angular JS application. Actually we are working in Angular 4, so that needs to be bootstrapped before compiling. So we need to provide it the parent component for our application. So by default the parent component is set to app.component, and this is where we are setting our app component as a parent component. So now let's get started creating our own custom component, and that will be generated within this app folder. So if we go to our cli.angular.io, and if I click on get started, it will take me to a GitHub link, and in this link I have bunch of information that how we can create our component. And if we come below right here, generating components, directive, pipes and services, we can see that we can execute this command in our terminal to create our own custom component. Okay, so I will go back and I will use my terminal of WebStorm. If you are not using WebStorm, you can use a CMD of your OS. So I will come right here and I will write ng g, and rather than writing g I can write a full name generate, but I will write a g character, ng space g space, and I want to generate a component, so I will write component, and after that I will name my component. So I will write my dash component and I will press enter, and it will take some time and it will generate my own custom component along with this default app.component.ts that has been generated by the same Angular CLI commands. So let's wait for it to generate our own custom component. So you can see that it has generated our component, and if I open up my app folder now, you can see that it has created a folder with the name of my component, and within this folder we have all those 4 files that form one component. We have a CSS file for styling, we have an HTML file for viewing our data, we have a spec file and that is used for unit testing, and we have a TS file, the TypeScript file, where we define the modules and all the models and the data properties for our component. So let's open up our my component, my dash component dot component.ts. okay, so in this file we can see that it has imported and got the reference of Angular core, because this library needs to be imported in all the components that we need to create in Angular 4. And after that it has a selector. This is a declarator that starts with the @ sign, and that has to be the same character, same word as the reference of this component. And it has a selector property, and it has a template URL, it has a style URLs, and after that we have a class, and inside the class we can define our data, but I'll come back to it later. So what this all about? First of all, let me open up my app.component.ts, and if we see the selector app-root, this is our parent component. So where this app-root coming from? And if we open up the HTML, we can see that this title is being set after getting the value from this title. So if we open up our index file, we can see that the app-root has been added in the body element of our index.html. So it means that it create an HTML element, and that element can be used to fetch the data of this class and can be bind with our view. So in the same way, if I go back to my custom component, this is our HTML element, and we can use this element as a reference for binding the different variables in the functions with our view. And if I open up my HTML file, you can see that there is a text written inside it. What if I want to show this particular text in my browser? So in order to show it in my browser, I need to open up my app.component.html, and I need to add the binding in this parent component, because if we have created our own custom component and that has been added as a child of parent component, make sure you remember that app.component is the parent and all other components that we will create will be the child components, and all the data of child components will be available in our parent component. So that's why we can fetch the data of child components and bind that data and show it within the template of our parent component. But if I open up my app.module, we can see that it has added our own custom component. We don't need to add it manually because we have created our own custom component, and it has generated the component with the same name along with the name component at the end, and after that it has given the path inside it, same as it added the path of our default component, and our custom component path has been added right here. And in the same way, we have got the reference of our custom component, and it has add that component in the declarations property, the same name, and this is where we can get and use our custom component, and that has been added automatically by Angular CLI command. So let's go back to our myComponent.component.ts, and I will just copy this one, and I will open up my app.component.html, and inside it I will add a bracket and I will paste it, and I will end the same value because this has become an HTML element, and I need to end that tag as well. Now along with the title, I will also fetch and show the value of the HTML of this particular component, because this is an element and this is the reference towards our HTML, and this value should be shown along with the title of our application. So I hope that I have explained you as much as I could. So now let's save all the files, and now I need to run my application to see if that works or not. So let's write ng, and I will write ng serve. So you can see that it has compiled my application successfully, and if I go to my browser and navigate to localhost colon 4200, and it has shown me the title, which is app starts, and after that it has shown me my dash component works. So our data has been fetched from our component along with the title of our application. So this is how we can bind and create component, and there are more points and the concepts related to component, but for now that's pretty much it. I will explain you further about components as we proceed along with this tutorials. So now I just want to explain you the flow and the execution of the whole thing, that what's going on at the back end, how our application is being run, starting from the index file, and then we have the app.module.ts file and our custom component. So if I open up my index.html, it has app-root element, and that has been generated by our default component. So our application will start executing from this file, and when it will read app-root element, it's gonna take us to main.ts, and inside it, it's gonna give it this application to our bootstrap for bootstrapping our application, and this is where it's gonna come after our index file, and it's gonna call the bootstrap module function, and this is gonna take us to the module name, and in this case we have app module, which is the name of our module, and this is where we are going to come after the execution of this function. And after that this file is going to execute. We have external libraries that are going to be referenced. Inside it we have the default component, and we have the custom components. After that, it's declarations, it's importing all these declarations, and after that we are setting up our default component that has to be added within the key value of the bootstrap. And this is where the bootstrap knows that this is the main component that needs to be bootstrapped for our application. And though this is the parent component, and after execution of this component, which is the app component, all the child components will be added and executed along with this parent component. So because this is the parent component, and all other components, the custom components, will be the child components. So this is how the process of the execution of program works. I hope that you have got the idea of how the flow of component works, and I will talk further about components later. But for now, make sure you practice it yourself and try to subscribe my channel and comment below if you have any question or any confusion related to components. So now I want to talk about routing. In other words, routing means navigations. You have seen in almost every web application we have links, and we need to click on different buttons and links to navigate to another pages of the same website or the external pages of other websites. So in Angular, the routing works in a single page web application. So what do I mean by it? If I open up my browser, we can see that if I click on it, and you can see that it has opened up a new link and it has reloaded the whole link in the browser. What the single page application does is we have the link within a page, and rather than reloading the whole page inside the browser, it actually load a particular view in the particular area of web application, rather than reloading all those contents that don't need to be changed. Like if we have a main menu, we have a footer, we have a sidebar, and along with the sidebar we have a content area. And if we want to navigate to another content area, we reload the main menu, we reload the sidebar, we reload the footer, and that makes application specifically web application a bit slower. The single page application is much faster because it doesn't reload the whole page, rather it loads the particular content within a specific area of a web page. So in Angular it is called routing. So let's get started. I have created a new project. It has nothing but the default components, default module, default files, and I have it doesn't contain the custom component that I just created, but because I want to create two components, and one component will be used as a one page, another component will be served as another page, and I will add two links in my main component just below this title. And when I'll click on the first link, we will load up the view of our first custom component, and when I will click on the second link, I will load up the content of the second custom component without reloading the whole web page. So let's get started. First of all, I need to create two components in my project. So I will press Ctrl C, and in order to create our component, as I have shown you that this is how we create components. Like this, we need to write ng component and the name of our component. So I will write ng space g space component, and after that I need to name my component. The first one, I will name my component product. So I will press enter, and it's gonna take some time, and it's gonna create the component inside my app folder. You can see that it has created a product custom component with all those 4 required files that are needed to form a complete component. So let's run this file again and create another component, and I will name it members, and I'll press enter to let it create my another component. So you can see that both the components have been created in my app folder. The first one is the product, the second one is the members .component.cs. Now let's run our application to see if there are no errors. So I have executed the command ng-serve, and if I navigate to my browser and I need to reload this localhost colon 4200. Actually, let's go and see. It's still compiling now. It's compiled and reload it. And I'm gonna right click and inspect. And you can see there is no error in our console, means that our components are working fine. Okay, so now let's navigate to our project. Now let me first add the reference for our selectors. So let's open up our product.component.ts and I'm gonna copy this one, app-product, open it, paste, and just below this one let's add a BR element to bring our cursor to the next line, and I'm going to open up my members. So I will write app-member, paste, and let's save this file and navigate to our browser. So we can see that we have loaded the components within our parent component, and we have shown the binded template for individual component. Like for this component we have this template, for this component we have this template. So now we need to convert over both the components, so that we need to add links on this page, and when we will click on the first link it should show this text, and when we will click on the second link it should show this text. So if I open up my app.module.ts, we can see that both the components have been added in our parent module, and we have both the variables, the reference variable have been added within the declaration property. Okay, so one thing I want to mention here, that there is a convention for defining the names of modules and the component. It should end with the module. All the modules should end with module. All the components should end with the component starting with the name of component, and the same with the module. Now in order to define the routing and the navigation process in Angular 4 application, we need to import another Angular 4 library, and these are the external libraries, and this is how we define and import the external libraries. So now just below it I need to import, and I'm going to name this module router module from single colon, and I will write at Angular slash, and after that I need to write the name of external library that I want to use within this application. So the name of library is router, and that let us define the routing within our application. It is right now grayish color because it is not being used right now, because we need to define this module within our imports, and that will make it more colorful. So first of all, let's come down to imports, and I will write what is this, router module dot, and I will write it's called for root, and within these brackets I need to define an object. You can see that that has been colored up because it is now being used within our imports. So within our, actually this is not an object, this should be an array. So within this array we need to define our routes. Right now we have two components, member and the product. So inside this array I need to define objects, and within this object I will write path colon, and within the single quotes I need to define the name of that view, and this name will be shown along with this URL of our web application. And after backslash, and after that we can have any kind of name, but that should be meaningful. So first one is the member, so I will write backslash and I will write member, actually not with a backslash, a single member, and now I will write a comma, and after that I need to give a reference for my first component. If I open up member.component.ts, we can see that it has a class and the class has name members component, and this is the name of our class that we need to add in our app.module.ts. So I will go back to app.module.ts and I need to define a component. So I will write component column, and after that let's paste the members component, and this is where we are defining the one page view for our router. So after that I will add a comma, just copy this object, paste it right here, and I'm going to change the path from member to product, and component name should be the name of our class. So I will open up my product.component.ts and I will just copy this product component, come back to our app.module.ts, and I will paste this one right here, and I will save this file. Okay, right now the routing won't work from now because I haven't added the links on this parent component because those links will be used for navigating to different components. So now I will come back to my app.component.html, and rather than writing the directives directly, I can define any HTML that has a click event. But right now I will use an anchor tag. So I will write a, and after that I need to write a property name, and that is called router link equals, and I will write /, and I need to add the name of my path. So first one is the member. So let's write a member, and within this I will write the text within this link, and I will copy this one and paste it right below, and I will change the name of this member to the other component. So I will copy this product from here and I will paste this one, and I'm going to remove both of the below lines, and I'm going to save this file, and let's navigate to our page. Actually I needed to change this one, product. So let's navigate and reload our page. Actually it automatically reloads, and if I click on it, it doesn't work because I haven't defined an area that if I click on any of these links, where should we show the content of individual component, whether it's on the right side, whether it's on the bottom of this page, whether it's on the bottom right corner of this page. We need to define an area where we want to show the data for our component, and the data for both the components resides within the HTML files of both the components. So now let's come back to our app.component.html, and I'm going to define the area for showing the content of individual component right below the links. Okay, but after that I'm going to write a BR to bring my cursor a bit more at the bottom of these links. Router dash outlet. Okay, and I'm going to save this file. Now if I click on it, member products, and you can see the URL has been changed /product. If I click on member, you can see that the / and the member is being changed. And one thing you need to notice that the whole page is not being loaded. This part of text, the links and this header remaining same, only the content is being changed, that is the individual component, and this is making Angular application much faster and much reliable and much secure as compared to reloading the whole page for different content of our page. And we can have bunch of components for defining the routing. This was a small configuration for routing, for navigating from one component to another component with the help of component.html. So for now that's pretty much it. I hope that you have got the idea about routing. I will proceed further in this whole tutorial and talk further about advanced routing within Angular 4. So guys, in this video I'm going to talk about one of the most important concept in Angular, and that is data binding. And data binding required in almost every Angular application, because without data binding we can't fetch the data by calling a service, or whether it's stored in a variable and show that data in our view. So I'm using the same project and that I was using in my previous part. So I have a selector app root and I have a title which app works, and this title is being binded with this template. And you can see that we have set the template URL as a reference of our HTML file, and HTML file is app.component.html, and this template URL is set to this file, and whatever we will write inside this class can be binded and is bindable with this HTML, because this is what has been added in the template URL. So first of all, I want to let you know that if I have defined a variable called title and I have set a value, and that is a string right now, and inside this file I have binded the title, and the double curly braces means interpolation. Interpolation means that this is the Angular way of bind any variable data with the view, and it's gonna fetch out the data of this variable and show that data inside this element. Okay, and we can show multiple types of data, whether it's in JSON format, whether it's an array, whether it's an object, whether it's a reference to any external link. So let's say that I want to create an object, and inside the object we know that we have a key, and I'm going to create two keys. So this is an object. Now how to show this data in our view? So I'm just coming after this h1 element and I'm going to show the data in my template, and inside the double curly braces I want to fetch out this object, and after that I want to print the name. Okay, so now I will write object dot the name of our key, and it's going to fetch out the value of this key. I'm going to save this file and save this file as well, and if I go to my Chrome you can see that it has shown me AppWorks out of the title variable and object.name, and it has shown me the value of the name key of that object. What if I want to print out all the values of this object? And in our Angular, if I go back, and we can see that if we navigate to angular.io/docs and you can see right here, this is the URL, and we are given with multiple attributes for the elements for using in our templates, and for iterating through all the values in our array, whether it's an object on our array, we can use ng-for, and it's going to iterate through all the values, all the keys of an object and show that in our template. Let's say that I want to create an array in my class, and that array, let's say array equals to ABC, DEF, GHI. So 3 values are enough. So I have defined an array. How can I print all the values of this array? One way to print all the values of this array is like I will define any element or without any element, and I will write array 0, and I'm going to copy and paste this thing 2 more times. I'm going to save this file and save this file as well, and if I go back, and you can see that A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I has been printed. Now let's say that I want to fetch the array or an object from a server, and by calling an API, and it's gonna give me an object, and I'm not sure that how many objects are coming from our server, how many elements are in an array. So it's not a good practice to manually define the index numbers of the array. Instead we need to write for loop, actually not a for loop, but it's an attribute for the element provided by the Angular, and that iterates through all the elements of an object or an array without caring about how many elements exist inside it. So for printing the values of this array, I'm going to remove all this code and I'm going to define a UL element. And inside the UL element, I'm going to define li static ng for equals to, and I will write let let's say I want to fetch one value in a variable I, and after that of name of our array, and after that I need to print out I. Okay, let me save this one, and if I go back you can see that all the values are getting printed in our bullets list format. So what's going on here? It's just like for each loop. If you have worked in other languages, actually this is an array, and every time it's going to store each value of that array in our variable I, and each time as the one value is fetched out from that array, we are printing out this value of this I like this with the interpolation, and this ng for will repeat this whole element. Depends upon the size of this array. If the size of this array is 3, then this whole element is going to print out 3 times with a different value of I, because each time I will be having different value from that array. So we have seen how we can bind an array in our template. Now let's see that what are different ways that we can bind. If I go back to my API, we can see that we can use ngIf for checking out our conditions. We can use ng localization, and we can use ng style, ng switch default. I just want to show you how to use such kind of attributes. I'm not going to be showing you all these things, but later on in this tutorial, as I'll be developing applications for showing you the real world development examples using Angular 4, so I'll be using almost every attribute from here. Okay, so let me go back, and inside my class I'm going to define a variable, and I'm going to name it is true, and I'm going to store a value true inside it. It's a variable name and it is a value stored in this variable. Now let's say that in my HTML I want to print out some string based on this variable. If this variable contains true, then I'm going to show that text. If this variable contains false, then I'm going to hide that text. So I will write a p element, and in my p element I will write star static ng if equals to double quotes, and I'm going to write the name of my variable. So I will write is true, and inside my p element I will write hello. So let's go back, and this hello has been printed because this condition has got true, and when this condition will get true, all the content within this p element will be printed. If this variable contains false, then this value will be hidden. Everything that will come inside this element, it can be other elements as well. Right now we have just a string. Let me just change true to false. Let me save this one, and you can see that that's gone because that condition got false. So now I have just defined a boolean variable. We can add other conditions within this attribute, like let's say that I want to create another variable and name, and I want to put my name inside it. Let me save this file and copy this one, and I'm going to paste it again. And inside the value of ngIf, rather than directly writing our variable name, we can use the conditional operators like equal to operator, greater than equal to operator, not equals to operator, less than equals to operator. So I will just write a variable my name equals to, within the single quotes, Umair. And now I will change the text inside it. And now when this condition will get true, means that if this variable contains this value, then this will be printed. So let's save this one, and you can see that it has printed true because this value have gotten true. So if I remove any character from this string, and if I save this file, you can see that the value has gone because this condition has gotten false. And if I change my double equal to not equal to, and it's going to print true because this my name contains Umair and this is not equals to and this condition is getting true, and when it's get true, this string will get printed. So now you can see that this value has been printed. And same as we can also write not before a variable if this is false, and this not will make it true, and when this whole condition will get true, this hello will be printed. And I'm going to save this file, and you can see that hello has been printed. So we can work around in any way. I have defined a condition. We can also write AND operator like this, and I have directly write boolean value. After that we can also define AND operator, we can define OR operator. So let me just save this. You can see that true has been printed because this is true, and false, and it's gone because if in AND condition both the conditions should be true. So this is false, and this, if no matter if this gets true or false, this is going to get false, and this true string will be hidden. So that was all for the data binding, and there are more things in data binding. I want to show you some new features launched in Angular 4, and these are if, then, and else statements within this for, and that would be used with the templates. So in this video I'm going to show you if, then, else statements, and I've already shown you in my previous task that how we can bind different variables with our template. And I have defined a variable is true, and inside this variable I defined true as a value, and then I binded this variable with this p element, and I used an attribute ngif with a static, and after that within the double quotes I used that variable, and if that variable gets true, then this value will be printed. If the value of this variable is false, then this value will not be printed. And it doesn't need to be boolean value, it can be any conditional thing, like if 2 equals to 2, then it's also going to return a boolean result whether it's true or false. So I'm going to just control Z to bring back my boolean value. Now let's say that I want to add another condition within this if. I have already used if condition on it. Now I want to use else condition. So for using else condition, I need to write a semicolon, and after that I will write else, and I'm going to write first template, and I haven't created this template yet. So what it's going to do, I'm going to first define a template. So I will write ng template hash the name of template, and I'm going to print a message. This is first template. Alright, so I'm going to save this one and save this file as well. So if I go back to my browser, and you can see that it has printed hello. The reason is that if this variable, the result of this variable returns true, right now it's a boolean value directly, so it is true, then this value will be printed. And if this condition gets false, then else condition will get printed. So not just printed, it's going to execute this template. So we have defined a template like this. I have used an element like this. I have used ng dash template, and after that I have used the name of my template with a hash sign, and within this template I have set out a string, a message, and this is just a string. We can change it to other elements as well. We can add bunch of other elements within this template as well. So if I change this to false, now this variable will get false. Now else should be executed, and it's going to call this template, and this template message should be shown. So if I navigate to my browser, you can see that this is first template and this has been printed. Okay, so now let's say I want to add the template for the first condition as well as for the second condition. I don't want to rely on this hello. I want to have another template, and that should be executed when this gets true, and the second template should be executed when this gets false. So I'm going to change it to then, because when this gets true, this then template will be called, and after then I have called this first template, and after this first template I'm going to write else second temp, and I'm going to copy this one, paste it, copy the name, paste, and I'm going to change the message from first to second. Now if I navigate to my browser, it has shown me this is second template. The reason is that this value gets false because this is false, and this then first template will not get called because this is getting false, and when this gets false, this else condition will be called, and that's why this second message has been printed. And if I change it to true, the first condition will get true, and the template that has been added just after this then keyword will be called, and right now we have first temp. So if I navigate to my browser, you can see that it has printed this is first template. So this was all for the if then else. One thing more I just want to mention, if you haven't worked with Angular JS, Angular 2, and you are learning Angular 4 right now, I just want to mention you that I have added a URL for my HTML, and in this case if my HTML contain bunch of elements, then it's a good practice that you create a separate template and add the reference for that template within this template URL. But if our HTML contains just one line, like just a heading element or a paragraph element, then rather than creating a separate HTML file, we can directly add an element after this. Okay, so I'm going to just comment this whole bunch of code and comment this code as well, and now I'm going to add this title directly within this template. So rather than adding template URL, I'm going to change it to just template, and within the single quotes I'm going to write P and interpolation, and I'm going to write title, and let's save this file, and you can see that app works. So this template contains just one P element. If our HTML elements gets increased like multiple elements, then it's not a good practice. We must need to add a URL. Okay, so that was all for this video. Make sure you subscribe my channel, and thanks for watching. Hi guys, now I want to create a small single page web application using Angular 4. I have created this application in my tutorial of Angular JS 1. If you want to learn developing this single page web application with Angular 1, I have given the link of that video in the description below. Check that out. But in this video, I'm going to create this application in Angular 4. And in the previous videos that I have been creating of Angular 4, I have been teaching you few important concepts and techniques for binding, for different things. I will be using all those concepts to create this application, plus a few more important things like how to add a click event on the buttons in Angular 4, how to bind any attribute value without interpolation. So in this application, I can add different items, text item. We can have bunch of other things right here, but I can just add this text right now, and I can remove any text that I want. If I click on this cross button, it's gonna remove. Click on any cross button, it's gonna remove. If I want to add another new item in that list, I can just click on it and write anything inside it and click on add. It's going to add right here, and I can add as much item as I want. If I add anything and this contains empty string, it's not going to add anything in that list, and I can then remove the new items that I have just added. So this is what I'm going to develop in this Angular 4 tutorial. So in my code, I have nothing but the default settings that I have the title app starts and my HTML, and inside this HTML I have the title that is bind with this property. And I'm also going to write some CSS in my app.component.css file and write HTML and write the code inside this class to get our single page web application works. So first of all, I need to write few HTML inside my app.component.html, and I'm going to remove the previous code that is written in my HTML, and I'm going to write first div, and I'm going to give it the name of my class main, and after that I'm going to add h1 element, and inside it I'm going to write items list, and after this h1 element I need to add a div. It has a class, and this class contains add item. So in this div I'm going to add the input text box and a button. So I will write input. It has a placeholder, and placeholder would be add item, and it has a class. Let's say it has a class of add text, and after this input element I need to add a button, and this button has a text add. So let's save this file and see what we have right now. We have the items list heading, and we have a text box, and we have the button. So now I need to add another div. Actually, let's not add a div. Instead, I'm going to add unordered lists, and after that I will add a list element, and inside this list I need to add all the elements that I'll be adding right here. So I'm not going to add any constant value inside my list right now. Let's say I have ABC. This is an element that has to be shown, and along with this element we need to have a span, and within that span I need to add X character to close our or to remove any particular item. So this is what, and I'm going to write CSS to style this list a bit, okay? And I don't think that I need to write and add any class. Instead, I'm directly going to add a style components for my li tag and ul tag. So let's save this file, and I'm going to go to my CSS file to write some CSS code. So first of all, I have this main class. So I will write main dot main, and I need to give it a width, and that has to be 500. I have text align, that has to be center. I have margin, that is 0 auto. I have the border 2 pixels solid, and the border needs to be dark gray. So I will write D7, 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 and I'm going to remove the border bottom. So now I need to add margin top 20 pixels and font family, that has to be sans serif. So let's save this file, and I need to navigate to it. So you can see that we have added some styling for our main class. Now we need to add some CSS styling attributes for our heading, for our other elements added in our HTML. So now after this main class, I need to add h1, and h1 has to be text align, that has to be center, background color, that has to be a dark bluish color, so I will write 5C8297, and after that I need to add the padding of 30 pixels and 0 pixel, margin top 0 pixel, and color has to be white. After the h1 element, let's check that out. So it is working. Now we need to style this text box and our button. So for the text box and the button, I need to write first of all the add item, and I need to write position relative, padding bottom has to be 0, and height has to be, let's say, 30 pixels. And after that we have a class add text. So add text, and its styling should be width 80%, height 30 pixels, padding 5 pixels, font size 20 pixels. And I need to add some styling elements for my button, which is inside add item class. So I will write height 45 pixels, width 50 pixels, padding 5 pixels. So let's save this one, and you can see that our styling is working. Now we need to style our list elements that we have just written right here. So we have the UL element, we have the LI element, and the span. So come back to our CSS file, and I'm going to write UL. First of all, I need to remove the bullet points, so list style needs to be none, font style needs to be 20 pixels, color needs to be 686868, and that is dark gray color. And we have the margin left, that has to be minus 40 pixels, and margin bottom 0 pixels. And now we need to write style for LI element, so it has a border bottom 1 pixel, solid, and BF. Okay, and I need to write colon right here, and after that I need to add some background. So background color, I want to add this one, and after that I need to add padding 10 pixels and 0 pixels, margin bottom, and that is 5 pixels. So let's go back and see what we have right here. Okay, so last thing we need to do is we need to bring this X character to the right side, and we have the X character within our span element. So I'm going to write the last style for our span, so that is the cursor pointer. If I hover my cursor on it, it should show as a pointer, and position needs to be relative, and float right. margin right, I don't want it to be at the right side a lot. So you can see that we have our element item that we will be adding from here, and we have this. Now it's not doing anything. Right now we need to write our TypeScript and JavaScript code, and we need to bind those properties with our HTML. So let's come back to our HTML. And first of all, let's come back to our app.component.ts, and I'm going to add an array, and that will be containing the default elements that will be shown in our list at the start of our application. So I'm going to remove this title, and I need to define an element, a property called item equals to, and within this array, let's say I want to add Angular 4, and we have a React, and let's add the third element, let's say a JavaScript library underscore. So let's save this file, and let's come back to our HTML. And now I'm going to bind this list of items. Right now it's an array with this UL element, and I'm going to show all these three items. No matter how many elements are in this array, it's going to show up within this li element. And I have shown you in the previous two videos how to use ng for iterating through all the items and show each item in our list. So within this li element, I'm going to write static ng equals to double quotes, and I'm going to write let I of items, and these items are this attribute I is small. Okay, and after that, rather than adding ABC, I need to bind each item in my li element, and I'm going to use interpolation within these double curly braces, and I'm going to write the name of this variable that is receiving each item from these items. So let's save this file, and let's come back. So you can see that all the elements are being shown up right here. We have Angular 4, React underscore, and we can't remove individual item right now, and we can't add new item right now. So we have bind our list in our li element. So right now, let's write our code for adding new item from writing this input text. And if I click on this add button, it's going to show up in that list. So let's come back to our app.component.ts file. And now I need to add another variable, and that's going to contain a new value that's going to be written in this text box. So after these items, I need to write a new item, and that is at start it's going to contain nothing but an empty string. And after that, I'm going to define a function, push item, and it's gonna have a function instance. And first of all, I need to check if this dot new item is not equals to empty, then add a new item. Otherwise, we don't need to add that empty item in our list. So this dot items dot push this dot new item, because this is how we push new item in our array. Okay, so after that, I need to make my new item empty again. Once our new item is added in our list, it needs to be empty again. So let's save this file. It will not be shown up right here, but if I go back to my HTML, I need to bind this new variable with this input element, because if I write anything inside it, it should reflect the change in this variable. This is called two-way binding. If we write something from here, it should shown up within this input element, and if I write something in my input element at runtime from my application, it should be added in this variable automatically. Okay, I'll show you right now, but first I need to write some code to bind this variable with this HTML. So in order to bind it, I need to first write a square brackets, and within this square bracket I need to write parentheses, and within these parentheses I need to write ng model. Okay, and after that I need to write equals to double quotes, and within these double quotes I need to write the name of that variable. So I'll copy this variable and paste it within this property. Okay, if I save this file and save both the files, you can see nothing has been shown because it has been binded with this property, and this property is empty at start. If I write something inside it ABC and let's save this file, you can see that has been shown right here. Okay, because that is being binded with this input element. Okay, and if I will change something from here, it's automatically gonna reflect this variable, and when this variable is going to be changed, I am pushing this variable within this array in my push item function. Right here I am pushing this variable, the value of this variable in this item. Okay, so right now I need to add a click event on my button so that if I write anything inside it, it's going to add up in my new item variable, and if I click on that button, it's going to call this function, and this function is going to push that new item in my array, and that array is going to be reinitialized, and when this array is going to be reinitialized, it's going to this ng_for, it's going to repeat all the items of this array. Okay, so I hope you understand. Let me complete it and I'll explain you again. So for adding a click event on this button and calling this function, I need to write something called a parentheses, and inside this parentheses I need to write something called click, and after that equals to double quotes. Okay, and within this double quotes I need to call that function push item. Okay, so let's save both the files, and first at start I need to make in my TS file I want to make this string empty. Okay, so now let's add a JavaScript. So if I click on add, it's going to show up in my list, and that has become empty. So what's going on right here? I'm writing in my input element, and it is binded with this variable, and that variable value is going to be changed right here. And after writing something in my input element, I'm going to click on this button, and this button is going to call this function, and in this function I am checking if that element is empty or not. If it is not empty, mean it is filled with some value, I'm going to push this new item in this array, and this array is changed now because it contains a new item right now. And when this array is going to be changed, it's going to trigger and let this ng_for that the items have been changed, items have been upgraded. So it's going to iterate all the new items of this items array again. So now items contains 4 items. It's going to iterate through, and all the 4 items will be shown up in my list. I can add any item that I want, but I need to add a click event on these cross buttons to get this thing work, and I need to add that click event on my this span. Okay, so same as I added a click event on my button, I will write click within the parentheses, and I will add a double quotes, and I'm going to let's keep it empty right now. Let's add our remove item function first. So remove item function index. Okay, so what is this index show? This index will contain the index number. There is an error. Let me remove this one because it is showing me some error. So this is at the 0th index, this is at the first index, this is at the second index. So from my HTML, I'm going to send out the index number of the item that contains this element. If I click on this one, it's going to send that function 1 because this is at the 1 index. If I click on this cross button, it's going to send out 0 index. Okay, so I will show you that how we can detect an index from this ng-for, but right now let me come back to this function and write code with this index that it's going to receive from that click event. So inside it, I need to write this dot items. An array contains a function. This is a JavaScript function called splice, and index and 1. So it's going to use that array, and from that array it's going to remove that item that comes at this particular index. If this contains 0, it's going to remove the 0th element from that array, and 1 indicate that remove one item starting from this index. So I need to remove just one item, so that's why I have written 1. Now I need to call this function and send out the index number from that HTML. So to find out the index number from that ng-for, we need to write few more code after the items variable. So after that, I need to write a semicolon, and I will write let. I need to define the name of variable that is going to store the index number of any particular item. So ind, I'm going to name it ind. We can name it anything, and after that I'm going to store it index, and this is a keyword. We can't change its name, and this indicate the index number of individual item. And when we will click on this cross button, I need to send this particular index because I'm storing this index in this variable. So I will send this variable each time I'll click on this X button. So I will write click equals to double quotes remove item, and I'm going to send ind, which is the this index. Okay, let me save this file and save this file as well. So this file has been reloaded, and if I click on this cross button, it's going to receive this react, this one, because this is at the first index. So click on it, nothing has been removed. So the reason was that it wasn't removing. I inspected that file, and because of some reason this line of code wasn't showing up in this function. So I came back to that TS file and removed this line and rewrite this line within this function. So then I saved this file, and this line showed up within this function. So now if I click on and add a debugger right here, and if I click on this cross button and check what's inside this index, you can see that it has 1. Okay, so this index contains 1 because react at 1 index, and if I let it run, so you can see that's gone, and I can add new item. Let's add few more items. So these items have been added, and I can remove any item if I click on any cross button of individual item. If I click on it, it's gone. If I click on it, it's gone. So all the list items are being shown up. We can add item, we can remove item. That was a pretty small single page application. So that was it for this tutorial. I just want all of you to keep subscribing my channel for getting notified for my upcoming Angular 4 videos, and make sure you like this video. Thanks for watching. Hi guys, so now in this video I'm going to talk about pipes. In AngularJS 1, pipes were called filters, but after that the pipes were introduced replacing filters. So what are pipes? Pipes basically takes any kind of data. That data can be integers, can be string, can be any date format, and before showing that data in the HTML or on our web application page, we process that data into our required format. Like if we want to print the name of our students in uppercase and we have got that data in lowercase, so we process that data and we convert all the names of students, and before showing that data we will convert that data into uppercase. So there are built-in pipes in Angular 4, and there are the ways that we can use to create our own custom pipes. But first I will show you how to use the built-in pipes. So I have an empty project with the default files. I have the app.component.ts file. I have the HTML file. So within this TS file, I'm going to define few variables, and these variables will be having few values. So first I will define a name as a variable and Umair its value, and it contains one uppercase letter and all other letters are in lowercase. So I'll go back to my HTML. Let's save this file, go to my HTML, and now I will use h2 element, and within this, using interpolation, I will print out the name. If I go to my browser, you can see that the name has been shown. So now what if I want to convert this name into uppercase and lowercase before showing it to the user? So for using the pipe, we need to use the pipe sign, and after that we can use uppercase. Let me copy this one, paste it, and I will write lowercase as well. So let's save this file, and I'll go back to browser. You can see that all the characters of the first name are capital and all the characters of the second h2 element are smaller. So before showing all these characters of the string, we have applied this pipe, and it has converted the value of this variable and shown it to the user. And we can use different kinds of pipes, and we can have our currency pipe, we have our built-in date pipes. So let's use our date pipe. So first I need to define a date in a variable. Let's say a day, new date, and within it, let's say I want to 1992, 3 and 15. So I have added a random date within this variable day. So within my HTML, I will use h2 again, and within the interpolation I will write day, and I need to use a date which is a built-in pipe. So I will write a pipe sign, and after that I will write a date. So let's save this file and go back to our browser. You can see that this was the actual date without using our pipe. Okay, and this is the date with using the pipe, because I just wanted to fetch out the date out of this time. I didn't want it to include the time within the output of my date. If we just want to convert this one into our this format, then it takes a few substring and concatenation without using a pipe. So Angular 4 provides us built-in pipes to convert this date into this format, and we can have a parameter for this date, whether we want to show the name of our month or we want to show the month number, if we want to show the day along with the date or not, if we want to exclude the day which is the Wednesday or not. So I'll go back to my WebStorm and I will copy this one and paste it again. So along with the date, I can have a parameter. In order to use a parameter to be sent to this pipe, I need to use a colon, and within the single quotes I can send out the parameter. For the date pipe, which is the built-in in Angular 4, we can have a short date as a parameter, and we can have a full date as a parameter, and few other parameters for the date pipe. So I will use the short date, and I'm going to copy this one and paste it, and I'm going to replace short date with a full date. So let's save this file, and now you can see that this is the actual original date variable. This is the date with the date pipe, and this is the date with the date pipe along with the parameter short date, and this is the date along with the parameter full date. So this is how we can use different parameters along with our pipe. So now we can add multiple pipes within our interpolation. So let's say I have this date. Let's say I want to convert all the characters within this string into uppercase. So we need to use uppercase pipe, same as we did like this. So I'm going to copy this one and paste it right here. And I want to use another pipe, and I will write uppercase. So what it's gonna do, it's going to bring the day and it's going to convert that day into date format with the parameter full date, and after that it's going to convert that date into uppercase. And once all the calculations are done, it's going to show the result in our page. So I'm going to save this file and navigate to my browser, and you can see that it has converted all the letters of this date into uppercase, and this is called pipe chaining. If we use multiple pipes along with a variable, it is called a pipe chaining. So that was a brief introduction of pipes, and we can work with pipes in any way we want, depends upon the structure of data we are receiving. Now I'm going to show you how you can create your own custom pipe, and for an example I'll show you how to sort an array. I'll be printing out the array in my HTML, and I'll be piping that array and convert that array into ascending or descending order based on the parameter that I will be sending as an argument of that pipe. So for creating a pipe, I will create a new file within app folder. So I will right click on app, new, and TypeScript, and I will name it app dot sort pipe. Let's say app.sort, and I'll click OK. So this file has been added, and now I need to write a code to define my pipe. So first of all, I need to bring up my pipe and pipe transform libraries from our Angular core. So I will write import pipe transform from Angular/core. Now I need to define a pipe declarator, and the declarator means that I'm going to name my pipe, that what should be the name of my pipe. Just like we have used uppercase, lowercase, date, those were the names of our pipes. So I will write at pipe. This is how we declare our pipe declarator, and inside it I'm going to write name. Within a single quote I will write sort, and this is the name of our pipe. After that I need to export this pipe to be used in other components. So I will write export class, and I'm going to name this class sort pipe implements pipe transform. And inside it I'm going to transform my pipe. Within the transform I'm going to receive the values from my HTML. So this is my actual app.component.ts, and I'm going to send out and print an array within its HTML, and along with this array I'm going to call that pipe and send out the different arguments. So I need to send out this array, and the argument identifies that whether we want to convert that array in ascending or descending order. So I will go to app.sort.ts, and inside it I will first receive a value, and the value can be of any type of array. An array can be of any type, whether it's string array, float array, integer array, characters array. So that's why I have written any inside it, and after that I'm going to receive my argument, and that has to be in a string, whether it's an ascending order or the descending order. After that I will write colon any brackets, and inside it I'm going to return the resulted value using this value and args. So I'll save this file, and before writing anything inside it, I need to let this sort pipe to be available in my app.component.ts. So I will go to my app.module.ts, and just like I imported other things in my app.module.ts file, other components, I need to import that pipe file as well. So I will write import sort pipe, and that its name should be same as our exported class right here. So I will copy this one and paste it, and from which file I need to select that pipe class that is being exported from here, and that is within the app.sort, like this. And after that I need to use this import. Right now I've just imported this pipe class, but I need to declare it before using in other components. I made an error. The reason was that I imported the declarator pipe right here, but I want to use this pipe within app component. So for using this in app component, I need to declare this sort pipe before app component, because if I declare it after the app component, then it will throw an error that sort pipe, the pipe whatever the name it has, the sort pipe can't be found. Okay, so that's why I have declared and added before this app component. So make sure you don't do this mistake. So I'm going to save this file now. I have added it in app.module. It is available in all the components before this sort pipe. So I'm going to close this file, and now let's come back to our app.sort.ts, and inside it I need to first detect that what is the argument, whether it's an ascending order or the descending order. So I'm going to check if args equals to ascending, else if args equals to descending. And inside it I'm going to return out the value dot sort. So it's going to sort the value which contains the array, and it's going to return the sorted array in the ascending order. But in the descending order I need to first sort this array, and once it is sorted I need to reverse it. So inside our HTML we need to send out array, and after that as an argument I need to send out my parameter. So within the interpolation I will send out array, and I will use a pipe sign, and now I need to call that pipe, and the name of my pipe is sort. So paste it, colon, within the single quotes I'm going to send out, let's say, ascending. So let's save this file, and if I navigate to my browser you can see that it has printed 1 2 3 7 8, and if I go to my app.component.ts you can see that it is not sorted, and it has sorted my array. Now let's come back to our HTML file, and I'm going to change it to descending. I'm going to copy this string and paste it right here. I'm going to save this file and go back to my browser. You can see that it has sorted my array in descending order. So this is how we can create our custom pipe depending upon our own requirement. So thanks for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe my channel for more videos on Angular 4 and like my video as well. So now I'm going to talk about forms. Forms are really important to get the data from user. Let's say user wants to sign in to our website. He must needs to enter his username and password, and we need to validate his username and password before he may able to sign in to our website. And we want to validate his data, and we want to show the errors if there are any wrong information provided by users. So we must be able to get the data that user can enter in text boxes, whether it's a radio button, whether it's a checkbox, whether it's a drop down. So I'll be showing you how we can fetch the data of the form, how we can validate the data, whether it's right or wrong, how we can handle different kinds of errors on that form. So in my app.component.ts, I have an empty class and I have an empty app.component.html. I have a pre-written CSS uh, which you can write as it is, but if you want to write your own CSS, you can write your own. I've just written this CSS to get my form at the center of my browser that I just showed you. If you want to work with the simplest form on the top left corner, you can also work with it. The purpose is to just learning Angular 4 and along with form. So I'll go back to my HTML and I will write a form element. So form, and I will give it a class container, and inside this form I need to define an input element and it's of type text, and now I need to give it a name. Name is very important for working with forms along with Angular 4, so you don't need to forget the name property of this element. So name equals to first name and its placeholder is first name as well. And after that, let's add a BR to bring to the next line. And I'm going to copy this input element, paste it again, and I'm going to change the name from first name to last name and change the placeholder as well. And after that, I need to break and I need to select for the drop down, and this element is going to have name as well, and I'm going to name it, let's say, languages. Okay, and inside this select I'm going to add 3-4 options. So it has a value and that is C++. I'm going to copy it 2 more times and I'm going to change the values. Java, Angular. So, and after the select within the form, I need to add 2 break tags and I need to add an input type submit. It has a value submit. So let's save this file and navigate to our browser, and we are done with our UI and our CSS is being applied on these text boxes, on this drop down and on this button. So now in order to fetch the data that is going to be written within these input text boxes and that any option of this drop down is going to be selected, we must need to get the data within our this class, component class. So in Angular there are 2 ways to fetch the data from the form. One is a template driven form and other is the model driven form. So first I'll show you how we can fetch the data of the form using a template driven. So I will navigate to my HTML. Template driven form data means that most of the work I'll be doing within this template to fetch the data of the form, and model driven form means that most of the work I need to do within this component to fetch the data of this form. So template driven form, I need to work on this template. So I will first come to this input element in Angular 4. I need to define a form to fetch the data of all the input text boxes. It automatically detects the form element, and after that within this form element it detects that which of the elements contains a directive, and that directive is called ng model. Any input element, whether it's a select, whether it's an input element, it's going to check where are the ng model written. If this ng model is written just with this input text, then input element, then only this input text will be able to fetched within this app component. So I need to copy this ng model, paste it, and I need to paste it right here as well. Okay, now our Angular 4 will automatically detect that these are the options and elements that needs to be fetched within this component. But I also need to add this form, and Angular 4 must need to know that what form should be used to send the different elements within this. So I will first write ng submit equals to, and I'm going to name the function, and that function would be inside this component. Whenever this form is submitted, when this button is clicked, then which function should be called, and that function will receive all the values that will be written within these input elements. So I need to define the function name. So I will write on submit, and I need to use this directive within these parentheses. But along with this directive, and I'm going to call this function, I need to define a directive, and that is called ng form. That is built in Angular 4. So I need to use that directive. So I need to define the ng form directive within the hash variable. So I will write ng hash, and I can name it anything. So I will write user form equals to, within the double quotes, I will write ng form, and within the parameter of this function, I will write this variable that I have just defined, and that is going to contain all the values coming from ng form. So I will write user form dot value, and it's going to send out the user form dot value, means that it's going to send out the objects of all the values that is going to be written in all these input elements and this select element as well. Every element that is having this ng model directive. So I'm going to save this file, and I'm going to write on submit function within this component. So I will write on submit equals to function, and it's going to receive an object of user. For now, I'm just going to console.log to check if we are getting our values or not. So I'm going to save this file, and save this file as well. Make sure that in your app.module.ts file you have imported this forms module library, because without it we can't work with form validations, and we also need to use this form module within our imports. Okay, so let's save this file, and I'm going to navigate to my browser, and I need to go to inspect to check the values, because I have written console.log. So I will write different values. Let's see, I'm going to write Umair, Mirza, and I'm going to select any value from this drop down. So I'm going to click on submit, and as I have clicked on submit, it has called that function, and in that function I have logged this object, and it has shown me first name colon Umair, language is Java, last name Mirza. Okay, so it has automatically formatted this object with the name attribute of each input element and its value. That's why I told you that don't forget to define the name to each input element. So that was it for the template driven forms. Now I'll talk about model driven forms. Model driven forms are more powerful, because with the model driven form we can do unit testing easily, and we can perform validations more easily, and we can detect any change happen within these input elements. So let's go and work with model driven forms. Hi guys, so now I'm gonna talk about model driven forms. I've already explained you what is template driven forms, and I've opened the same code that I've explained you in my previous video, and I have this app.component.ts, I have on submit function, I have this HTML, I have this app.module in which I used form module, HTTP modules, and included those modules in my imports. In no time, I just want to show you that what was that. You can see this is the form This is the first name, last name, and if I write anything inside it, and I can get all the values that I will write inside it in my console. You can see that I have got these values in my component right here. I've called this function on the click of that button, and I have sent out all the values that I added in the form, and I console.log that user. So I'm going to convert it into model driven form. Model driven form are more powerful and more flexible. There are some things that we can't do with the template driven forms, but with the model driven form we can perform those things. Just like if we want to detect any change occur in any variable, we can do it with the model driven form. We can easily do a two-way data binding with the model driven forms, and that is very important in large applications. So let's do and convert it into model driven form. You can see that in app.module.ts file I have form module imported, and in model driven form I don't need forms module. Instead I need to have something called reactive forms module, and this is a way we can work with model driven forms. So I'm going to copy this one, and rather than form module in the imports block, I need to replace it with the reactive forms module, and that's pretty much it that I need to do in this file app.module.ts, and I'm going to save this file. Now let's come back to our app.component.ts file. And inside it, first I need to import two more libraries to work with. So first one is the form group, and other is the form control. Form group contains the instance of the whole form that is in our HTML, and form control is the individual element with which we will be binding our component. So I'm going to write import. Within the curly braces, I'm going to write form group, and after that I'm going to write form control, and this is inside Angular form. So Angular / forms. Now in my app component I first need to add a form class. So I will write form semicolon, and after that I need to define a function in order to detect that if any of these elements have been initialized or not, and I'm going to change the way we bind with these HTML elements. So there are many functions in Angular 4 that we can work with, but the most important and famous one is ng on init equals to new form group, and inside the form group constructor it requires an object of all the form controls that we require for binding in our HTML. We know that we have three elements that we need to bind right here. We have first input element, we have the second, and we have the select. Okay, so I'm going to define an object, and as a property value pairs I need to define three form components. So I need to name those components. So the first one will be the first name, new form control, comma, not equal to, this is an object, so I will write colon, and I'm going to press Ctrl D in my window to copy and paste two more times, and I'm going to change the names, last name, and languages. And inside the constructor of form control we can give it a default value. Whenever our application loads, that default value will be shown up. So I'm going to write my name here, Omer, that is the default value, and as the default value for the last name and the languages I'm going to give it empty strings. Okay, so let's save this file. And actually there is an error I forgot to let you know. Actually this is a function, and I need to write ng on init, and I need to write curly braces, and within this curly braces, let me just cut and paste inside this ng on init, and I'm going to store the reference of this form control in this form property that I just added above. Okay, so I will write this dot form. So that's fine now. ng on init will be initialized and will be called whenever we will initialize this form inside our HTML, and I'm just gonna let you know that how we can do it. So I need to save this file. Make sure you save all the files, module.ts and component.ts. Now we need to change the bindings a bit in our HTML. We can see that we used ng form, and for the binding of individual input elements we used ng model in input elements and the select element, and we call the onSubmit function and sending out the user form dot value for sending out the values of all these input elements. So first I need to change the way we bind in individual input elements. So the way we bind individual elements is like I'm going to remove ng model, and I'm going to write form control name, and I'm going to give it the name of form component. If you see our component.ts file, we can see that these are the individual components, and this first component should be bind with our first input element. So I'm going to copy the name of first form control and paste it right here. So I'm going to copy this one, paste it, and change it like the name of our second form control and paste it in our drop down, and I'm going to change its name languages. So let's save this file, and now I need to change this user form into different ways so that we may work with the model driven forms. So rather than writing user forms, we can see that we imported form group. So form group needs to be added right here as a property, as an attribute of this form element. So I'm going to remove this one, and within the square brackets I'm going to write form group, and I'm going to name it form just like we added inside our component. This is the form. So rather than sending out user form dot value, I need to send out form dot value, because this is what we assign to this form group right here. So I'm gonna save this file and save this file as well, and I'm going to go to my, and it has shown me error, can't find form control with the name first name. So let's go back, and alright, actually I mistakenly added form control. This is form group. Okay, so let's save this file and reload it again. It's taking some time. So our application has been started in our browser. So we can see that there's a default value Umair right here within this input element. So if I go back, we can see that we added our default value in the first form name form component, and we bind this component with our first input element. That's why the first name, the value has been shown up in our control. So if I write further, and if I select something from our drop down, and if I click on submit, let me just open up source, and I'm gonna add a breakpoint right here. So I'm gonna click on submit. So if I hover my cursor on it, you can see that it has sent me all the values that has been selected from this form group. So we have the first name, languages, and the last name, and we are console.log and printing out all the values of this user. So I'm gonna let it go. So if I go back to my console, you can see that all the values are shown up in my console. So there are few more things in model driven forms, as I mentioned at the start, that we can detect any change occur in Angular 4 form, model driven forms. So I'm going to now develop a small single page application. It will be a base converter application. In my seventh part of this tutorial series, I have developed a single page web application. In that video, I showed you that how we can add new items in our list and remove individual items and something like that. That was also to let you understand the basics of indexing and finding and deleting different elements. So in the base converter application, I'm going to detect out individual changes that are going to be shown up in the individual input elements. And as I'll be changing the decimal values, it's going to reflect in other elements in the form of octal, hexa, and binary values. And same as with the binary, hexa, and octal. And this is just to let you know that how we can do a double data binding, two-way data binding, and how we can detect any change in our input element. So I have explained you model driven forms. So using that technique, I'm going to be developing this small application and showing you few more further things that are required while working with model driven forms. So this is the base converter application. If you know what is number systems, if you are a programmer, then you must know what are number systems. What is a binary number, what is octal number, what is hexa, and what is decimal number. So in this application, this is the decimal input text box, and if I write something, decimal number starts from 0 to 9. So I need to write down those numbers. So I will write anything from 0 to 9 in the first text box. It's gonna convert that decimal into binary. At the same time, I don't need to press any button, and it's gonna convert that decimal number into octal. Octal number starts from 0 to 7, and this is hexa number. Hexa starts from 0 to 9, and then A to F. Total 16 numbers exist in hexa number. And if I write anything in the octal text box, and it's gonna convert other three boxes. And same with the binary and hexa. If I write anything inside it, it's gonna convert all of the three text boxes with respective base numbers. Okay, so this is the application that I'm gonna be making using model driven approach of the forms, and I'll be showing you that how we can do a two-way data binding, how we can detect any change occur in any model. So let's get started. Make sure you check out my previous video in which I have explained you what is model driven forms, because that will be required for you to learn and understand what's going on in this video. So right now I have this app.module.ts, and I have included this, as I mentioned in my previous video, reactive forms module, and added reactive form modules in the imports. And I have this CSS file to design this UI. If you don't want to design this UI, you can work with the simplest text boxes and without any heading. But if you want to create that, you can just pause the video and try to look at these classes. This is container, this is P, this is input and select. And after that, I have HTML and the TypeScript file. In my HTML, I have this form, and inside this form, if you have seen my previous video, I have this form group, and I have assigned this attribute with a value form. And after that, I have h1 heading in which I have written base converter, and after that I have 4 input text boxes, and in these input text boxes I have the type, name is the decimal, placeholder is decimal, and I have form control name, and that is equal to decimal. And I have the binary input text box, octal input text box, hexa input text box. Make sure you pause that video and write it down as it is. Okay, and these are the form control names are coming from this TS file. I have imported form group, form control from the Angular forms. And after that, I have defined a form property, and after that I have initialized a function ng-on init. This is a built-in function that automatically triggers. And inside this function, I have initialized this form by writing this dot form equals to new form group. And inside this group, I have defined an object. Inside this object, I have different form controls: decimal, binary, octal, hexa. So these are the form controls that are being bind with these input text boxes. As you can see that it has form control name. It is being binded with this binary number, and this binary number is coming from here. And we have decimal, hexa and octal, and all these three decimal, hexa and octal are being bind from here, here and here. Okay, so now let's get started modifying this code to create our base converter application. Right now, if I run this much code, it's not going to do anything. Instead, it's just going to show this UI. It's not going to convert all these binary, decimal, octal and hexa numbers. So now in my TS file, first I need to create something called automatically triggered function. I need to detect that if this decimal value has been changed or not, if the binary number value has been changed or not, and on that triggered function I'm gonna detect that what is the new value that has been added in this text box, and based on that new decimal value, I'm gonna convert that value into binary, octal and hexa, and same for all other three input text boxes: binary, octal and hexa. So now inside my app.component.ts file, after this ng-on init function, I'm going to write a function called decimal changed equals to function, and this function is going to receive old value, comma, new value. Okay, so this function needs to be triggered whenever this input text box is triggered and I write something inside it. Each time I write any digit, that function needs to be triggered. So in order to trigger this function, I need to go back to my HTML, and this is where I need to write that decimal value. So I will press enter just after the name, and I will write a directive in Angular 4, and I'm gonna write ng model change. Ng model change, it's going to call any specific function whenever this input value is going to be changed. Right now it is bind with this decimal, so whenever this decimal variable is going to change its value, this is going to call specific function. So I need to call this function decimal changed. So I will write decimal changed, and I'm going to send old value. The first parameter is going to be the old value, the second parameter is going to be the new value. So for example, if I have a 1, 2, 3 already written in the decimal input text box, this old value is going to be containing 1, 2, 3, and if I add a new digit 4, and the next parameter is going to receive 1, 2, 3, 4 inside this variable. So the second parameter is going to be received within this event variable. But to make it understandable, let me write double quotes after that. To make it understandable, I need to store this value in a specific variable so that I may get that value inside the new value. Okay, so before this dollar event, I'm going to write new value equals to. Alright, it's going to give me an error because I need to write this thing within double quotes. So error has gone. So I have called decimal change function and sending out old value and new value. So let's save this file. Let's save this file, and inside this function first I need to trigger and check if I'm getting a new value or not. So let's save this file. So let's go back. I'm going to right click and go to the inspect console, and inside this console I need to see a new value should be printed in the console. So I will write 1 has been printed. I will write 2 2 has been printed. I will write 4. So as I'm writing individual value, that function is being triggered each time I am entering a value. Okay, so I have written these much digits, and that function is going has been triggered these much times. Okay, so now I need to show the converted value into binary, octal and hexa, and this is our decimal value. Okay, so let me remove this line, and I'm going to write a JavaScript way of converting decimal to octal, hexa and vice versa. We can write our own algorithm, but this is not the tutorial about number systems. This is the tutorial about the Angular 4 two-way binding and the change detection with the help of these functions. So I need to convert it with the JavaScript two-string methods. So I will write, so in order to fetch out this variable, let's say that I want to change anything from within this TypeScript file, I can write binary number directly from here. But what if I want to assign this variable, this form control, a value from here, from this TypeScript file? I can do it by first referring to that binary number like this dot form dot, and it has a function called patch value, and patch value is going to receive an object, and that object needs to have a key which we want to change. Right now we want to change a binary key which is a form control. So I will write binary colon, and after that I need to enter a new value. So I will write, let's say I want to give it 23 first in order to check whether it's working or not. So I'm gonna save this file, and in my decimal I'm going to write this. So you can see that as I change the decimal, that function got triggered, and that function executed this line, and this line changed the value of this form control, this variable, with a new value which is 23. And rather than entering 23, I'm going to fetch out a value of decimal from this variable, and I'm going to convert this variable value into a binary number. So in JavaScript we can convert this value into binary number like this. I need to write parse int, within the brackets I need to write a value which I want to convert, so value, comma, and after that I need to write the base of this value that needs to be converted, our value that is in the decimal form, and that has a base 10 because this decimal number contains 10 digits from 0 to 9, so that's why it has base 10. So I will write 10, and after that I need to write a two-string function, and within this two-string function I want to write the base of the number which I want this new value to be converted into. Like this decimal value, I want to convert it into a binary number, and binary number only contains 0 and 1, so that's why binary number will have a 2 base. So I will write 2 right here. Okay, so I'm gonna save this file, and I'm gonna go back right here, and I'm gonna write a decimal value. So you can see that it is converting this decimal value, and it's going to trigger and change the binary number variable into its binary value. Okay, and if I go back, and it has shown me this error, I need to detect that if it is empty, then you need to make it empty as well. So I need to make a check of it as well. Okay, so because it shouldn't show this NaN, so I'm gonna write if new value is not equals to empty, then you need to convert the decimal value into a binary. Okay, and now I'm going to copy and paste this line 2 more times, and I'm going to convert the octal and hexa. Okay, and the base number which I want to convert is 10, because I'm converting this new value is of base 10, and this is the octal, so the octal have base 8, so this decimal value needs to be converted into a base 8, and this needs to be converted into 16, because 16 is the base value, base number of our hexa. Okay, make sure these match these form controls. So now I'm going to save this file, and now you can see that as I am writing the decimal value within the first text box, it is converting it into the binary, octal and hexa. If I remove the last, it is not showing me that error NaN, but it has shown me 111. So I need to add another check that if this decimal value gets empty, then you need to make these 3 text boxes empty as well. Okay, so I'm gonna write else. I'm going to copy these 3 lines, paste it, and rather than converting it into these numbers, I'm gonna give it empty string. Same for octal and same for hexa. So save this file. Let's go back, write something and remove it, and remove the last digit. So you can see that else was called, and that has made all other 3 text boxes empty as well. So now we are done with our decimal changed function. Now we need to trigger the change whenever that binary number gets changed, whenever this octal gets changed, whenever this hexa gets changed. So if I write anything inside the binary, nothing will happen, because I haven't added a change trigger function for this binary text box. Okay, neither I have added into octal, and neither with the hexa. Okay, so I'm going to copy this function, not copying, I need to show you the steps, so I'm gonna write it again. So I will write binary changed equals to function old value comma new value. Alright, and inside it, first I need to check if new value is not equals to empty, else. So I'm going to write the same thing right here. So one thing I want to explain here is that if I try to change this binary number, it's going to change this decimal as well. Okay, and this decimal it's going to trigger, and this decimal is going to change binary again, and octal and hexa as well. So within this function I need to change only the decimal variable, because whenever the decimal form control is going to get changed, this function is going to trigger even if I don't write anything inside this text box directly, because this binary number is going to change this decimal, and that decimal change it's going to trigger this decimal function as well. I'll show you with the debugger. that what do I mean by it. But first I have defined this binary changed function. I need to add it in here. So I'm going to copy this line. Within the binary, I'm going to write binary changed. Okay, so let's save this file. Let's save this file as well. And I'm going to copy the first line. So from here, binary change function, I want to change this decimal. Okay, so I'm going to write decimal, and the base of this new value that I want to change is 2, because binary number has base 2. So I will write 2 here, and this binary number I want to convert it into a decimal value, and decimal value have base 10. So I will write 10 here. Okay, so I'm going to copy this thing and paste it. So if I make that binary text box empty, it needs to make the decimal empty as well. Okay, so let's save this, and so this is our code. Okay, so I'm going to add a debugger right here and debugger right here as well. Okay, so first I'm going to change the first decimal value. If I press 4, this is going to get triggered. Okay, and when it's going to come in this line, it's going to change that binary variable, and when that binary variable is going to be changed, this function is going to be triggered, because this variable is bind with our second text box, and second text box has ng model change, and ng model change is going to detect that this variable has been changed, so I need to call this function. So it's going to go back this function, and it's going to come and execute these lines of code. So if I let it go, you can see that it has come directly right here, because this line changed the binary variable, and binary variable triggered the ng model changed property in our HTML. Okay, so let that thing go. It's going to generate an error which I want to explain you guys. So let it go. So it has shown me an error that maximum call stack size exceeded, because this is a very critical point right here. Make sure you understand it pretty well. Okay, so the thing is that I'm going to change the decimal, and it's going to trigger this function, and within this function it's going to trigger this line, and within this line it's going to trigger this function. Okay, so within this function this line is going to be executed, and this line is going to change the decimal. So decimal is going to be changed, and this line is will make this function to be triggered again. Okay, when this function is going to be triggered again, this code is going to be executed, and this is going to change this binary variable, and this binary variable is going to trigger this function again, and the same goes as long as I'm not seeing any particular stack overflow error. There is a limit for stack. So this function is going to trigger this function, and from within I'm triggering this function, from within I'm triggering this function. So it's going to create a problem. I need to detect that if that function, this function has been triggered once, then it shouldn't execute this code. Okay, unless I write any extra digit within this binary or decimal number. Okay, so first I want to, if you haven't understand that why I have just written one line, if I change this binary number, you can see if I write 1, it's going to change decimal, and that function is going to be triggered with a new value that is going to be added within this decimal text box. Okay, and this decimal text box is going to receive a value, and that decimal text box is going to convert this decimal value into octal and hexa itself from the within this function. So I don't need to convert octal and hexa within this binary. It is this function's job. I just need to change decimal value, and decimal function is going to change other two values. Okay, I'm going to reload it again because I don't want that error to be shown up, maximum stack error. So I need to add more code within this function so that I may not get that error. So I'm going to go back to this function, and first of all, above this function I need to initialize three variables to detect whether we have executed this code or not. So I'm going to write B for binary 0, O for octal equals to 0, H for hexa equals to 0. Okay, and within this function I'm going to increment this value. This dot B equals to this dot B plus 1. I have incremented the value of B within this function. It means that this function has been triggered once. Okay, and after that I am going to check if this dot B equals to 1, means that it has been called cut and paste. Okay, and within this if, when these lines gets executed, I'm going to make this dot B equals to 0 again. Okay, so this function, this code is going to be executed only once. So let's go back, and you can see this is the code that we have changed. Now if I write something within the binary, you can see that it is changing the converting different values into octal, hexa and decimal. I'm changing the decimal from within, and the decimal is going to change the octal and hexa from within this function. So let's go and see what's the error. It's just a stack trace of undefined because I added the debugger. If I reload it again, I shouldn't see that error. Okay, so let's verify this, if it's come within this function or not. So if I write 1, it has come inside it. Okay, and within this it's going to go back to our decimal. It has gone back. Now it shouldn't come within this binary change, this if condition. Okay, because that has been executed once. Okay, if I let it go, so you can see that this has not been executed. Okay, so our program is almost working. If I change the decimal value, it's going to change all three values. If I change the binary values, it is changing these three values. So if I remove it, it's going to make all other text boxes empty. But I need to add the same logic within the octal and hexa. If I write something in the octal, it's not going to trigger. If I write something in hexa, it is not being triggered. Okay, I want to make it to uppercase because hexa values also contain characters. So I'm going to call the uppercase from within as well. So I'm going to define a function that is going to be triggered when that change occur within the octal text box. So I will write octal change equals to function old value comma new value. So this dot O equals to this dot O plus 1. If this dot O equals to 1, then you need to check if new value is not equals to empty. Then you need to change the decimal value. So again, if I change something within the octal, I'm again going to change the decimal, and it's the decimal job, that decimal function's job, that is going to change other two text boxes. Actually, it's also going to change the octal as well. Okay, So it doesn't make any difference because that we need to compromise a bit. Okay, so but it's a good that we are not changing one thing twice. It's a decimal change job that it's going to change the binary and hexa values after its conversion. So within this new value, I'm going to copy this line, paste it, and I want to convert which value? I want to convert the octal value, so I'm going to write octal right here. Okay, and the base number of this octal is 8, so I will write 8, and I want to convert it into decimal, so I have written 10. Okay, so that's been done. Now I'll copy this line and I'm going to write else, and within the else, if that text box gets empty, then you need to actually I want to change decimal, so I will write decimal here. Okay, and I'm going to make the decimal empty, and the decimal empty is going to make all other text box empty as well. Okay, I hope you have got this trick. So let's save this file. You can see that function has been shown up in our debugger. So I need to call that function whenever that change occurs within octal text box. So I'm going to go back to my input, paste it, and I'm going to write octal changed. Save this file. So if I write something inside it, it's not changing other values. Let's go back and see where is the problem. So ng model change, it's going to call. Let's add a debugger and see if that called. So it has been called. So we have got 2 from here. Okay. So now let's go back to our TS file and see. I need to get the old value and I'm getting this new value. Actually, I'm not changing this variable back to 0. So within this if condition, I need to make it 0 again. Okay, so here was a problem because there could be an error that stack limit has been exceeded. So let's reload it again. Remove the debugger, and if I write something, you can see that the octal change is going to change the decimal, and the decimal is going to change the other 2 or 3 text boxes value after its conversion. Okay. We can also write our own algorithm right here if you know the number systems, but I'm just using the JavaScript way of converting the number systems. Okay, so the last function is if I changed this hexa value. Right now it's not going anything. That function needs to be triggered and it needs to change all 3 text boxes. So I'm going to write hexa changed equals to function old value comma new value. Okay, so within this I'm going to write this dot h equals to this dot h plus 1. If this dot h equals to 1, then you need to check if new value is not equals to empty. Then let me copy this line, paste it, and the hexa base of hexa is 16. So I'll start with a 16 here, and I want to convert this hexa into decimal. That's why I've written decimal right here. And I want to convert this hexa value into a base 10, which is the base of decimal, so that's fine. And after that, within the else, I want to make the decimal value empty. Okay, and after that I need to make 0 again. And let's go back to our HTML, and I'm going to copy this line and change the name of our function. Let's go back, and you can see that has been shown up. Now if I write something, you can see that it is working as well. If I go to octal, it is changing. If I remove something from binary, it is changing all other three values. If I write something, and if I write something alphabetical within hexa, that is from A to F, so it's going to change other values as well. So that was it for this tutorial of this small single page application in which I have shown you many important things using the model driven forms. I have shown you how to detect change in any particular variable, how to do a two-way data binding. Make sure you stay tuned and subscribe my channel for more videos about Angular 4 and other latest technologies, and don't forget to share it with your fellows. Thanks for watching. So now I'm going to talk about form validations. There are two ways we can validate form. One is provided by Angular and other is we can write our own custom function for the validation of specific element in HTML. So I'm using the same template that I used in model driven form approach, and I just want to explain you what's going on right here. I have this TypeScript file, and this is the same as form group, form control, and this is what I have added right here that I needed to import for the validation of our form. This is the default way provided by Angular. Make sure you add this validators from Angular/forms library, and after that I have the same template ng on init method. Make sure to check out my last two videos in which I explained you model driven approach and a basic application, single page web application. And then I am binding these form controls with my HTML right here. Okay, and other than this is I'm using the same CSS file, and I have included two more CSS functions for the hover and disabled. And if I go to my browser, you can see I have applied the hover and disabled on this button. Hover means I need to change the color of this button, and when this button will be disabled, I'm changing its color to gray, and this button is going to be disabled when we will enter any wrong information within these text boxes. Okay, right now it is not doing anything. If I write something inside it and select from here and click on submit, we can see that we are fetching the data using the model driven form. So I'm going back to my TypeScript file, and inside it I have three form controls, and I'm going to apply the basic default form validation technique on this one input text box, and the second input text box I'm gonna be using my own custom made functions for the validation of this last name. Okay, so now first I need to come right here, and I need you to enter these validators. Make sure you have entered right here, and after that I need to, what if I want to add comma, and after this comma I want to remove this one because I don't want that value to be pre-written, and I want to use the validators that I have included above dot, and I'm going to add required. Okay, and I'm going to control S and go back to my browser, and it's taking some time. I need to reload this application, so it's been reloaded. Right now you can see that our button is enabled. We can click on this button, and if I write anything inside it, we can get that data, but I need this button to be disabled. But before that I just want to go to my HTML element and click on submit, and I want to go to body form, and inside this form we can see that I have this ng invalid class applying to this first input text box means that I added this condition that this first control form control is required, means that this shouldn't be an empty. And when it is empty and I'm clicking on submit button, this ng invalid class is being applied on this class. You can see that the other input text boxes are ng valid because ng required is not being applied on the other input text boxes. Now I need to disable this button. In Angular 4, we have a way called, just like we had in Angular 1, Angular 2, we have a disabled property. So I'm going to write a disabled within square brackets, and within the double quotes I want to fetch out the form is valid or not. So this input submit type button needs to be disabled whenever this form is not valid. So that's why I've added this not operator, and I'm going to write form.valid. Form.valid not means that this will be disabled when this form will be invalid. Okay, so I'm gonna save it and let's go back, and we can see that I have reloaded this application. Now my button is disabled because this is required, and right now it is empty. If I write anything inside it, we can see that this button has been enabled, and if I remove it, this has been disabled again. So let's go back to our TypeScript file, and rather than adding validators dot required, what if I want to add further conditions? Like I want to add a pattern condition. I want to set a requirement that the value inside this form control should be greater than or equal to 5 characters. If these are the less than 5 characters, then we should disable our submit button. So in order to add multiple condition, we need to add validator.compose function. So I'm going to add validators dot compose, and it requires an array of all the conditions. So I'm going to cut it and paste it right here. Okay, if I save my file and go back to my browser, we can see that it is disabled and it is enabled now. So our required is working. Now if I want to add another condition inside it, let's say I want to add a condition that the minimum length in first name text box should be greater than 2. Okay, so I'll go back, add a comma, and I'm going to add validators dot min length, and I'm going to add a 3. 3 is the minimum value for this form control to be true. So if I go back and if I write a character, we can see that this button is not enabled right now. If I write another character, it is not enabled because I have added the second condition for the min length. If I add a C, we can see that the minimum length was 3, so this button is enabled now. Okay, we have other functions in validator, like we can have a max length and we can have a pattern. Let's say I want to add a pattern to it, like this text box can only contain characters or digits but not the special characters like add character, like percentage sign, and sign, static sign. There are something called regular expressions. If you know about, make sure to check this out on internet. And if I go back to my TypeScript and I want to add validators dot pattern, and inside this pattern I want to add a regular expression that this input text box should only have characters or digits. So I will add backslash 2 times W, backslash 2 times again, dash sign, backslash S, backslash 2 times, and forward slash. And if you don't understand what is it, make sure you learn about the regular expression. These are to detect any specific pattern. We have patterns for almost everything. We have the email address pattern, we can have year, date, time patterns, and so on. So I will add a plus after that. Okay, I'm gonna save it. So it is disabled. A, B, C, this is the minimum length that was required. I'm going to add 1 to 3. It is still enabled. And now if I want to add any special character, let's say I want to add @sign, you can see this is disabled because I added a pattern that this input text box first name shouldn't contain any special character using this regular expression. Okay, so if I remove it, this button is enabled. So that was it for our default validator provided by Angular. We can have our custom validations. So now let's go and add our custom validation in our last name. Let's say I want to add validations. I just want to uh, let you know the idea that how we can add our custom validator function, but I'm not going to be the default or advanced level validations. Just like I want to add a validation to the last name that if it is greater than 3, then this button should be enabled, means that that value is valid. If this is less than 3, then that value is not valid, just to let you know that how we can write our custom validator function. So just after that here, and I want to add a function name, so I'm going to add text validator, and I want to send out a control, and control is the HTML element that is going to be accessed directly within this TypeScript. So I'm going to check if the length control dot value dot length is less than equals to 3, less than 3 actually, and I want to set out this form control variable to true or false. And when I will set this form control variable to true, it means that this form control is invalid. If this gets false, then this is valid. So I'm going to add a return statement, and it requires an object, and after that I need to add a form control name. So in this case I want to add this text validator to last name, so I will add a last name within the single quotes, and after that I need to return true or false. Okay, this is the colon, so I'm returning true or false. So if it is, I'm sending true, means that if the length is less than 3, means 1 or 2 or 0, then this is going to return true, and this is going to be invalid. And when it's not less than 3, then this is not going to return true, and this will become a valid. Okay, but now I need to add this text validator to this last name, just like I entered the hi. Now I'm going to talk about services. If you want to share data among components, you need to create a service. If you need any utility function, just like you want to create a function to sort the data of an array, you define a service and write that function in that service, and from that service you can access data in multiple components rather than adding a function in each component. That will create a lot of duplication of same code. So I have nothing, but I have this project. I have nothing in my app.component.ts file. I have nothing in HTML file, in module file. So first of all, I need to create a service. So in order to create a service, if I go to my github.com/angular/angular-cli, I can see that there are these ways we can create a service. And for creating a service, ng space g space service, and after that I need to write the name of my service. So let's come back to our project in WebStorm, and here I'm gonna write ng space g, I'm gonna write service, and after that I'm gonna name the service, and the name of my service should be let's say my data. So I'm gonna press enter. It's gonna take some time and create a service in my app folder where my components exist and my pipes exist, my custom components that created for the routing exist. So I've already created a tutorial that how to do routing, how to create components. Make sure to check that out, because I'll be using one of these members of product component to share this service data. Okay, So service has been created, it is not being showing up. I need to refresh this folder, so I'm gonna close it and click on it again. You can see that the service has been created, my data .service.ts, and above that I have my data service for writing unit tests. Okay, I'm not be writing unit tests right now. So I have this injectable import from the Angular core. I have this injectable function call, and this is the class in which I'll be writing my service function. So inside this service, I need to create few functions or any data. It can be any object, it can be any variable, and that variable can be accessed outside this service. So first of all, I need to add this service in my module. So I will open app.module.ts file and write after this app component, I'm gonna write import. Within curly braces, I need to write the name of my service. If I go to my data.service, this is the name of my service. So I'm gonna copy this name and paste it right here. And this is from the path my data service. Okay, so once that has been imported, I need to add it as a provider in this app.module.ts. So this is the provider. I need to copy and paste the name of my service. So this has been added in my app.module.ts file. So now I'll go to my service and I need to define outside this, after this constructor, let's say I want to create a function. So let's say I want to create a function success. Okay, so it's gonna return me a message successful, and above that let's create an object. So I will write the object and I'm gonna name it obj equals to id, and id would be 1, name would be my name, and roll number, let's say this one. Okay, so I have created an object and I've created this function. I'm gonna save it. Now I need to use this data, this function or this variable outside the service within the components. So I have nothing in my HTML. I'm gonna close it. I'm gonna close the module.ts because I just need to add it in my provider. So I'm gonna close this one, and in my component I need to add the import statement in this component. So I'm gonna go back to my app.module.ts and I need to copy the same import statement that I wrote inside it, and I'm gonna paste it right here. Okay, so now in order to use this service within this component, I need to use a constructor function. So I'm gonna write constructor and I'm gonna write private and I'm gonna name the service, and here this is the variable of service. I can name it anything. So new service colon, and after that my data service curly braces. So I have added that service in this constructor with the new name of that service. So I'm gonna save it. So now I'm going to console.log this message, okay, whether it shows up or not. So I need to first write ng on init. This will be automatically called as our digestive cycle, and whenever that app component will be initialized, this will automatically be called. So inside it I'm going to write console.log, and inside it I'm going to call this dot new service dot, and you can see that it is showing me all the variables, function name and an object that are available in my service. So I'm gonna call a success function. So now let's run our application to see if we got this message or not that will be returned by this function as successful in our console.log. So after some time our application has been started. Now I need to go back to my localhost column 4200, and inside my console.log you can see that the message successful has been printed. So our service function is being accessed within our component. Okay, so let's try to access our variable. So I'm going to write console.log and this dot new service dot object. Okay, so let's save it and I'll go back. You can see that our object has been fetched from that service within our component. Now, as I mentioned at the start, that we can share data among different components. So right now app.component.ts is our default component. In order to use the same service in our other components that I have already created, make sure to check out my previous video in order to see how to create a component. So I'll go back to my product component and I'll open up my product.component.ts, and inside it in order to use that service I need to copy this line and paste it, and I need to bring up our service just like I did in my default component. So I'll copy and paste it right here. Okay, so inside my ng on init function of our this is giving me an error because I'm inside a folder, so I need to go back a bit more in order to access the path of my service. Okay, so make sure you write dot dot forward slash before the name of our service. Okay, so inside our ng on init I'm going to write console.log and I'm going to write this dot new service dot success. Okay, but in order to use this component I need to add its selector within our HTML template of our default component, as I explained you in my previous video. So inside it I'm going to write the name of our app product component. So I'm going to go back and you can see that it has shown up product works because this was because of our HTML. Okay, but if you see right here, this is this successful is from app.component.ts and this object have been logged from the app.component.ts, and this successful message is from the product component. So we are accessing the service from the product component as well as from our default app component. Okay, now the benefit of doing this way is that if I change anything from any of these components, it will also reflect the change in other component because the service is independent. That service will have only one instance. If I change the value of any key of this service from any of these components, it's going to reflect in other components. So I'm going to remove both the lines, and inside ng on init I'm going to write this dot new service dot object dot name, and I'm going to change the name to John. Okay, so after that I am going to log the name. Okay, let's first go to our product.component.ts and I'm going to remove from here as well. Okay, so let's go back to our browser. You can see that the John has been printed because before printing the name of our object I changed the value of name key. Now if I copy this one and paste it in product.component.ts, this should print the changed name. I changed the name of service key in app.component. Now I want to see whether that change has been occurred if I call the same service from other component or not. So I will write product this message in other component. So I'm gonna save it and go to my browser. You can see this is from our other component, that is product component. This is from our default component. So we can see that the same function, the same object, same variables, same service functions can be utilized in multiple components. These services are independent. So in order to write same logic in each component, it's always a good practice to create a service and write that utility function in that service. So that's for it. I hope that you have liked it. Make sure to subscribe my channel and like this video. Thanks for watching and see you in the next part of this tutorial series. Hi guys, so now I'm gonna talk about HTTP service. In the previous video I have talked about how to create a custom service and how to use that service in various components. Like I'm using the same code from the previous video, and as you can see that I have this service that I created, and in this service I have this object and I have this function, and I'm using this data in my app.component.ts file and the product component. But right now what if I want to fetch the data from external source? Like I want to fetch the timeline data of Facebook or a Twitter. I can call a specific API and fetch the data in JSON format. So I have created local data in JSON format. As you can see in my project directory, I have created this data folder in my source folder. Okay, and you can create this file, and inside this data I have created this students.json file, and inside this file I have created an array of objects. Started with an array, and this is an individual object. Make sure you already know that how to write a JSON format data. This is the key, and this is the value of this key. Key should be in double quotes, and value if it is integer it can be without double quotes. So let's come back and fetch our data from this student.json file. So right now what I need to do is, first of all, let me confirm that in the app.module.ts file we should be importing this module, HTTP module, from this library. Make sure in your file this has been imported, and once this has been imported we need to add it in imports array. Okay, this has been added right here. Okay, so once this is verified, let's come back to our my-data.service.ts, and now I need to import the HTTP service within this service. So HTTP, and this is from at angular/http. Okay, and inside my data service I need to define a constructor to create a variable for this HTTP. So I will write constructor, and as a parameter of this constructor I will write private HTTP and HTTP. So I have sent out this property value to this constructor, and I'll be using this variable to create or call any specific function of this service. So inside this constructor, actually outside this constructor I need to create a function, and I'm going to create a function and name it fetch data. And inside this function I need to call this file, hit the URL of this file and fetch the data in JSON format. So in order to fetch the data of students.json I need to use this variable. So in order to use it I will write this .http dot, and we can see that we have all specific functions for working with our services. We have our get call, we have our post call. If we want to post any specific data or send out any specific data to a specific server, we can use the post. We can update any specific data using this put. But right now we want to fetch data, and for fetching data we need to call this get function. So I will write get, and within the single quotes, or we can write double quotes, I need to write the path of this students.json file, and I will start with this source directory, and within the source I have the data folder, and inside it I have students.json file. So I will write src/data/students.json. okay, and after that I need to write a function, and that is called subscribe, because once the data has been fetched I need to subscribe with the data if I want to show it inside our view or log it in my console. So I will write subscribe, and within the subscribe I will write data console.log data. okay, and this URL is going to hit, and it's going to return me this data, and after that I am printing out that data in my console. So let's save this file, and I will go back to my app.component.ts. In the previous video I did all this. I have imported that service, created a variable for that service using this path, and I have created this variable, and inside ng on init I can access this service and access all the functions and data of this service. So inside my ng on init I'm going to comment previous lines. So I will write this dot new service dot, and we can see that we can access functions which are written inside the service. So I define fetch data. So from this component I am calling that function which is written in my service, and when this is going to be called, it's going to get the data from this URL and print out that data in my console. So let's save this file, let's save this file as well, and let's go back to our browser, and I have, as I saved this file, it reload all the project, and we can see that we have got the response in this format, but we want to fetch the data in our JSON format, so that if we want to print that data in a specific view, if we want to apply ng repeat, we can do it. So in order to fetch the data in the JSON format, we want to do one more thing in our service. So before subscribe I can write dot map, and within the brackets of this map it's going to return me a response, and that response needs to return JSON. So dot JSON, and it has to return me. Okay, so it's giving me an error that map does not exist. Actually I need to import this map explicitly. So I will write import rxjs slash add slash operator slash map. So let's save this file, and you can see that the error has gone, and this map is going to return me a JSON format. Once it's going to return me a JSON format, this subscribe is gonna know that I need to print out this data in JSON format. Okay, I need to map this data in JSON format. So let's save this file, and let's go back to our browser, and you can see that as I logged my output in my console window, it has returned me 3 objects, because I defined 3 objects in my students.json file. So this is my first object, this is second, and this is third. So this is how we can get the data and hit any specific URL. Right now I have just hit path of a file which is in the same project. But if we want to hit any online call, Facebook provide different API calls, Twitter provide different API calls, Google provide different API calls, and bunch of other sites. We can simply write the URL of that file right here within the single quotes, and that is going to return us specific data. That was a basic introduction of HTTP. Next, I'll be talking about how to connect with the Firebase, and that will be more interesting. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe my channel and like this video as well. Hi guys, now I'm going to talk about animations. Animation is very big topic, so I'll give you a quick start that how you can get started with the animation in this video. So I've created a new project by just running. If I go to my cli.angular.io, and you can see that we can execute a command ng space new space the name of our application, and I ran this command, and it created a new project with the name animations. That was the name of my application. After that, I ran this command ng serve to start my application, and my application has been started this on the port 4200. So let's get started working with animation. First of all, we need to go to package.json, and these are all the libraries that are by default fetched by our Angular CLI when we created our application. But we need to add one more library along with these libraries, and that is called animations. An animation library will be used for animating different objects. So I'm going to press Ctrl C to end the running state of my application, and I'm going to use the Node package manager to install the animation library. So I will write npm install. You can use cmd as well, but I'm using WebStorm, so it has a default terminal inside it, so that's why I'm using this terminal. So npm install at angular / animations at latest -- save to add this library within this dependency object. So I'm going to press enter. It's going to take some time, and it's going to install this animation library within these dependency objects, and I'm going to show you that it will be added automatically because of -- save I have written after this npm command. If I don't write -- save, it will be added within node modules folder, but it will not be shown up within these dependencies object. It is very important that you add the required dependencies within this dependencies object, because if you want to give this project to someone else, you will not give this node modules folder. It contains very big files, and you will not be able to send that thing. Instead, you will just tell him or her that install npm install, and it will automatically detect all the packages within this package.json file. It's going to install automatically. So our animation package has been installed, and it has not been shown up right now, and I need to reload this file again. So open this up again, and I'm gonna save this one. So I think I need to refresh this folder. So let's open this up again, and you can see that this angular / animation library has been added, and it has a version. This is the latest version. The 4 starting in every library shows that this is the Angular 4 libraries, and there is the same process for Angular 2, but it will not be 4 in case of Angular 2. So we have Angular 4 animations library installed. So now let's go to our source app, and first of all open up app.module.ts file. So we can see that we have imported other few core libraries. In Angular 4 we have a separated library from which we need to import our animations. So for that I will write import. Within the brackets I will write browse browser animation module, and this will be from Angular slash platform browser slash animations. Okay, so once we import these libraries, we need to add these libraries within our imports array, just like we added other libraries. So I'm going to copy this one, browser animations module. Okay, so I'm going to save this file. That was it for this file. Now let's go and open up our app.component.ts file, and inside it we are going to write our animations code. We can see that we have a selector. So first of all, I'm going to add few elements within our HTML file. So I'm going to remove the previous written elements, that is h1, and I'm going to write div, and within this div I'm going to write button, and button will be click me, and after that I have a paragraph and it has a text look me. So what I'm gonna do is, if I click on this button, I'm going to increase or decrease the size of this text that is within the P element, and I will be adding different animations that it will be slowly increasing and decreasing the size, but not suddenly. Okay, so let's save this file, and I'm going to run my application to see how it looks. But before that, as it is loading my application, I'm going back to my app.component.ts file. I'm going to add another property here, and that is the style. I want to bring these elements at the center of my screen. So for bringing these elements at the center of our screen, we can write our style property within this component. So I'm going to write comma, and I'm going to write styles colon array, and within this array I need to press a character that is on the left side of one digit. Okay, so this is 1, so I'm going to press enter, and here I'm going to define few styles. Make sure you add this character that is on the top left corner just below the escape sign on your keyboard. So within these styles I'm going to select div, and I want to bring it at the center, so I will write margin 0 auto, text align center, and width is 100 pixels. Okay, so let's first go and reload it, and we can see that our elements have been shown up in our web browser page, and these are at the center of our screen. And if I click on this button, it will do nothing because I haven't added any click event on this button, because I need to add few animations, and on animation trigger function I need to add a click event on this button. So let's go back and let's save this file, all the files, and let's come back to our app.component.ts file. So within, we need to import few things before writing our animation code. So first of all, we need to import trigger, and that can be triggered whenever a button is clicked, whenever any elements is changed, whenever we write anything inside the text box, whenever we check any checkbox or a radio button, anything we can apply this trigger. So this is required for starting the animation. And after that we need to add a state, and state shows the state of our application, the animation, at one stage the state of our text is small, and other stage the state of our text is large. So we can have further states. So after that we can add a styles, and that is required style library. We can have a transition and animate. So that's pretty much fine for now. because this is a pretty basic tutorial. So I'm going to write Angular slash animations. So I'm going to be using all these things just right now. So in order to apply the animation on these elements, first of all, I need to add our trigger. So I will add a comma and I will write animations key, and it has an array actually. Okay, so make sure you write the same spelling, and within inside it I'm going to write trigger and the name of my trigger, and the name should be meaningful because this will be used for applying this trigger on input on this button element or any other input element. Okay, so I will write my animation, and after that I will add array, and within this array I need to add states. So I will add a state smaller, and I'm going to add its style. So I will write transform scale 1, and after that I need to copy this one and paste it, and I'm going to change the name of this state, and that is larger, and when it is larger I need to scale it up to 3%. Okay, so that's been done, but after this state I need to add a transitions. Transition can be like small, less than, equals to, greater than. This is a sign, and I'm going to write larger, animate, within the single quotes I'm going to write 300 ms is in. Okay, and this is not small, this is smaller, this one. Okay, so I'm going to save this file, and let's go back to see if it loads, and there is no error. Right click and go to inspect. So there is no error. So let's come back to our file, and this was all we need to write. Now we need to add a trigger event on this button and add animation element animation property for this p tag, because I want to increase and decrease the size of this p text whenever this button is clicked. Okay, but before that, within this class I need to add a function, and that will be animate. Okay, and above that I will write a state variable, and that is a string, and at start it's going to contain smaller, and whenever that button is clicked I'm going to change the variable value from smaller to larger and from larger to smaller. So I'm going to write this dot state equals to this dot state equals and I'm going to write larger if it is smaller, otherwise keep the larger. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to save this file. Let's go back to our HTML, and I'm going to add that trigger event. So I will write a click equals to animate. Alright, and I need to apply that trigger, this trigger name to which I want to apply this transition animation. Okay, so I will write and use the square brackets, and I will write at my animation. Let me check if it's like this. I'm going to copy this one and paste it, and I'm going to end my square brackets, and this is going to be equals to state. Okay, so let's save this file, and let's go back to our browser, and I'm going to click out this button, and you can see I have clicked out this button. It has animated and increased the size of this text. If I click on this button again, it's going to go back to its smaller state, and this is because the two-way direction is because I used this sign. If I remove the less than character from this sign, it's going to move one direction. So if I click on it again, it reloaded and reversed the size of that text without animation because I removed that character, you can see. And I need to go back and Control Z to get back that previous sign, and let's go back and click on it and click back. You can see that the animation is working. So that was a basic introduction of animations, and there are some advanced level animations like how to change the position, how to apply different sparkle effects, and there are many things that we can apply. We can use frame rates, we can use other transformation elements, or applying different things. So that was it for this video. I'm going to be talking about later about the advanced animations. So stay tuned, make sure to subscribe my channel, and if you like this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe.